Part 1, Communication Disorders, acronym CD, Understanding Communication, by Dr. Martha Jane Harris. This presentation includes audio that reads the slides. Therefore, closed captioning will not be used. Basic questions. What is speech? What is language? What is communication? Before we can understand what a communication disorder is, we must define speech, language, and communication. This is a diagram of the speech organs. The three components of creating speech are 1. Producing the sound, 2. Voicing the speech with resonance, pitch, and loudness, 3. Giving fluency or flow to speech. 4 speech systems: respiration, voicing, resonance, articulation. Respiration is breathing that supports speech. Voicing is sound powered by the vocal folds and cords. Resonance is the means by which sound is changed as it travels through the throat and nasal system. Articulation is the formation of speech sounds by the lips, tongue, and other structures. 5 dimensions of language. 1. Phonology. 2. Morphology. 3. Syntax. 4. Semantics. 5. Pragmatics. Number 1. Phonology. Use of sounds to make meaningful syllables and words. In other words, form of language. Number 2. Morphology. System that governs the structure of words. In other words, form of language. Number 3, syntax provides rules for combining words to form sentences. In other words, form of language. Number 4, semantics, how words work together to form meaning. In other words, content of language. Number 5, pragmatics, use of communication in social contexts. In other words, function of language. Note, sign language does not have sound, but has the 5 dimensions of language, and therefore is considered to be a language. Sign language actually has dialects based on region and nationality. 5 dimensions of language continued. Did you pay attention? It's important to know the 5 dimensions of language create the form, content, and function of language. Students can have difficulty with one or more of the 5 language dimensions. Form includes phonology, morphology, and syntax. Content includes semantics. Function includes pragmatics. Model of communication. We have 2 overlapping circles. The left circle is speech, speech without language. The right circle is language, language expressed through speech and through other means. When they overlap, they create spoken language. Components of communication use speech and language, as well as communication behaviors lacking speech and language. For example, tapping on a friend's shoulder, and those lacking speech. For example, a written note. Model of communication continued. We will focus on the left circle, speech, speech without language. The best example of speech without language, the first circle, is parrot talk. Yes, they can say, "Polly, want a cracker?" But they don't really know what they are saying. They just know that that speech noise will get them a cracker. More about speech sounds. English speech sounds. Typical ages for mastery of consonant sounds. Humans develop speech sounds at different ages, but we must always think of that development as within a range of ages. Some children will develop speech at a fast rate, while others develop a speech at a slow rate. These sounds are the morphology of language and are different for different languages: English, Spanish, French, etc. By age 3, P, M, H, N, W. By age 4, B, K, G, D, Y. By age 6, T, N, G, R, L, S. By age 7, CH, SH, J, TH as in think. By age 8, S, Z, V, TH as in that. Even later, ZH as in measure. Model of communication continued, focusing on the right circle, language. Language expressed through speech and through other means. Language can be written language, sign language, and even body language and facial expressions. Model of communication continued. The combination of speech and language creates spoken language. We've examined the 5 dimensions of language as the basis of the model of communication. Now let's define the model of communication. Model of communication defined. 1. Communication is the process by which one individual expresses ideas, feelings, opinions, or messages to others, and receives and understands ideas, feelings, opinions, or messages from others. Number 2, language is a rule-governed system of arbitrary symbols that stand for meaning. 3, speech is the physical production of that system. The continuum of typical speech and language. All behaviors can be placed upon a continuum to help define the range of possible behaviors, with the center of the continuum representing typical or average or normal behavior. Speech and language can be placed on a continuum, with typical speech and language placed in the center. Are dialects typical speech and language? Dialects make us interesting. Dialects are within the normal range of the language continuum. Examples of dialects include Standard American English, Black English or Ebonics, Appalachian English, Southern English, New York dialect, Spanish-influenced English. The quality of speech and language is on a continuum. Don't think my language is abnormal just because I'm an English language learner. Let's value language diversity. Remember, there are hundreds of other languages besides English. Language diversity is on the continuum of speech and language. ELLs need both basic interpersonal communication skills, BICS, and cognitive academic language proficiency, CALP. BICS are the basic conversational abilities that ELL students may master quite easily. CALP entails more complex abstract language use related to problem solving, evaluating, and inferring. Remember, language diversity is still within the normal or typical range of language development. Language differences, delays, and disorders. Language differences are all within typical or normal range. Regional speech patterns, dialects, foreign accents, and second language acquisition. Language delays, when a child has not developed language skills at the same age as most children do, can be a common indicator of other disabilities, can be a late talker who is at risk for developing language impairments. Language difference, delays, and disorders. Continued. Disorders are speech and language problems that are outside of the norm and therefore require speech and language therapy. Disorders include two types. 1. Speech disorders. 2. Language disorders. Speech disorders include articulation problems, voice problems, and fluency problems. Language disorders include receptive language problems, expressive language problems, or both receptive and expressive language problems. More information on these in the following presentations. Bet you can't wait! In conclusion, every teacher needs to understand what is typical speech and language and the natural variances that can be found within human communications. Such knowledge will help a good teacher teach better and ensure that education should be special. The photo is of Stephen Hawkins as he speaks to Nassau. The source is unknown for this photo. In this photo, Stephen Hawkins sits in his wheelchair with a photo of the Earth taken from space immediately behind him. He is speaking using his augmentative communication. This shows us that the future for all students with disabilities and with language disorders have a brighter future because of technological advances. With technology, we can ensure that education should be special. References: Friend, 2011. Hallahan, Kaufman, and Pullen, 2009. Eward, 2009. Smith, 2010. Taylor, Smiley, and Richards, 2009. Turnbull, and Wymeyer, 2010. The copyright for this presentation is Dr. Martha Jane Harris, 2017, 2010, 2005, 1998. Thanks for listening.